Welcome to Inspiring Women in Audit, the only podcast celebrating the achievements and journeys of women in the internal audit industry. In each episode, we spotlight the extraordinary stories, insights, and expertise of these dynamic professionals. Our aim is to amplify their voices, inspiring a new generation of women auditors to share their knowledge, experiences, and unique perspectives. Remember to check our show notes for links to our social media channels and to subscribe to the Inspiring Women in Audit newsletter. This podcast is brought to you by I4 Global Results Limited, the audit communication experts, dedicated to transforming your audit reporting and your audit results through communication, optimization, and collaboration. Now, let's dive into this episode of Inspiring Women in Audit.
Welcome, everyone, to Inspiring Women in Audit, the podcast that is dedicated to empowering and uplifting women within the internal audit industry. By amplifying their voices, we aim to encourage women in the audit profession to share their knowledge, experiences, and unique perspectives. I'm your host, Tracy Marquardt, and I'm super excited today because I have Amal Al Khaburi with me. She's my guest. Amal is the Chief Audit Executive at Vodafone Oman. She is an advocacy committee member of the IIA Oman and a member of the board of directors for the ACFE Oman chapter. Now, I know you're known in the industry as a transformative leader, and you share your knowledge with our community as a keynote speaker. And this far into your career, can I say the numbers? Almost 30 years, I think, into your career, you're now studying for the CFE, and you are 75% completed for your CFE designation. Congratulations. And by the time this podcast is released, you will be fully qualified. So no pressure.
Fingers
And
crossed.
I want to thank you for joining me and welcome to the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for having me. And that was a beautiful introduction. I'm truly honored for that. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm honored to have you here. Thank you. And I want to ask you, because you've been in auditing for it's almost 30 years, I think. What do you love
32
most?
years.
Sorry?
32 years.
32 years. Okay, my math is off. What do you love most about auditing? Why are you still here with us? I'm sure you've had a lot of opportunities to do other things.
I have. I just wanted to let you know, auditing is not my first love.
What?
It isn't. Cooking is.
Cooking. Aha. That makes sense because in your LinkedIn profile, you have something about cooking.
Yes.
Tell me about
And that is my first love. But before we get to that, I'll tell you
Okay.
about auditing. So why do I love auditing so much? I think it's because it gives I like the part of transparency and integrity. And I think that comes down to me genetically.
Mhm.
And it resonates with me personally with my ethics and my morals. And I think that's why. And I love to get into the nitty-gritty of things.
Nice. I love that it for me it's about positive change, and I think internal auditors are well positioned to facilitate positive change within their organizations.
I think so too. So I'll tell you a little bit about my cooking.
Okay.
So I've always loved cooking. So before I went into finance, I was actually going to go to Lausanne University in Switzerland
Mm.
to study, to become a chef.
Mhm.
And I worked in a hotel and I
Mhm.
chopped carrots as they make us do. Like in auditing, when I first started, they made me make tea and photocopy. Back in the day. Now they don't do that to the trainees, audit trainees.
No.
But back in the day, we were given very unrelated jobs to do, and we had to do them. And my mentor told me that's what he did. And I listened to him and I did that. But I did question everything that everybody asked me to do. So unless I understood it fully, I didn't do it. And I was called in and he'd turn around and he'd say, I heard that you didn't do your task for 3 days. And I said, but nobody explained it to me. And he said, what do you mean nobody explained it? I said, they told me to do this, like the test for management expenses. I said, but I don't understand why I'm doing it. Please, I need to understand. And they told me it's not important. Just do it. I said, how can I do something if I don't understand it? And he laughed. And he sent me back to the client. Yeah, so it was that part. And I think that's the reason. And going back to my cooking, I love cooking. I love experimenting. I've cooked around the world with Michelin star chefs and with Food Network stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So can you give me one idea, aspect, way that cooking and audit are related?
I think it's the precision and the change that you can bring about. So I've elevated our local food to an international standard. So we have this curry that is called baplo. It's fish, tomato, onion, and garlic, and a little bit of turmeric. And it's a very basic, simple dish. And you eat it with white rice. And it's very wholesome and very hearty and very tasty. So I took that and I turned it into a risotto when I was presenting in Milan with their local ingredients. So for me, those two resonate together, auditing and food.
I love that because I can see the precision when you're doing your preparation and when you're cutting those carrots that you talked about. But there's also a lot of creativity and there's transformation.
Yes. So we changed the way it looks from putting rice on in a plate, dumping some curry and fish in it, breaking it and eating it with your hands, to elevating it and turning it into a risotto with a little bit of local edible flowers and a sprinkle of saffron on top, you know?
Beautiful.
And it looked, and Parmesan cheese. And then when I did it, I remember my father said, oh, I can't eat that. Bablo's supposed to be bablo. What is this? And then when I did make it, he did taste it and he loved it. And I've done that with most of our foods.
And I think it shows an aspect of your personality in some way that you can take the basics, or you can take data and then you can turn it into
Something
an outcome that helps everyone and serves everyone. True.
And that's
Nice.
what I want from auditing. I'm not there. I don't believe that we should be there policing anybody. I think because everybody has to work in a just as we discussed a little earlier on before this, everybody has to adapt to their requirement. And we have to adapt to the auditee's requirement. I mean, yes, there are certain things that have to be there, but I was doing something in my, and we were having a discussion with a friend of mine, and he said, Amal, if you categorize something as catastrophic, and we were having a group discussion, is it going to shut down the company? And I said, no, it's not. And then I said to him, and he looked at me and he smiled, and I said, you're right. If it doesn't shut down the company, it's not catastrophic. It may be catastrophic in our eyes, but it's not gonna, stop the business. It's not giving us anything else just because it falls into a particular category.
Interesting. And we, when you speak about the role of audit and we're not here to be police. And earlier, just before we hit the record button, we were talking about how auditing is shades of gray and everything is open to interpretation based on the context and the company and the region and all of those things. And I feel like how successful you are as an auditor, or we are as auditors, is how we can see those different shades, how we can apply those shades. And it also has a great deal to do with the role and how we are perceived within the organization. If we are perceived as the police, we will not get as much accomplished. We will not hear all of and find all of the information that we need to be able to create the insights and to provide the insights back to the client.
True. There is a company over here in Oman that don't have a title as an internal audit department. They've called it assurance. So you don't have okay, we have the audit committee, but generally speaking, they have the titles are all assurance related, which is an interesting and a very forward thinking way of turning it around. And I would love to do that to all of the organizations over here. Turn them into assurance departments, not internal audit. Give them the same rights as the internal audit, but turn them into assurance advisors.
Would the mission change?
I think the mission can be looked at differently. We wouldn't be there to say, okay, we would be there to identify the risks and everything, but we would also be there instead of giving a proper recommendation, not a proper, that was wrong. And I think we should elevate and turn the findings into a positive, into something positive that can come out from something negative. And that's how we should look at things. So we usually take the observation as a negative connotation to a report. And I think that if we give the auditee that this is how we see it and this is what we recommend you could do, with taking into consideration your costs and all of that, and do the full benefit analysis and help them to turn that risk around. Not just to say, we'd put recommendation, audit conclusion, timeline, and we're closed. It should be more ongoing, not just a follow-up just before the audit is supposed to happen. We go back after 2-3 weeks and we sit down with the focal point and we say, you know what? Do you need any help with this? Is there any way we can look at this together?
I think there are a lot of audit teams out there that don't do that may want to do that. They may be restricted by the workload ahead of them, the boundaries that they've defined for themselves and their team in terms of the label of consultant or the label of advisor or whatever. There's some restrictions that they've given themselves to keep the boundaries clear. Yeah, and to keep the independence and the boundaries clear and I think helping the organization should be the goal, and that help can come in different ways.
I think so.
Super. Listen, let me take you back all those years, 32 years you've told me. You are a founding member of the IIA Oman. And you became a founding member at just 22 years of age. I mean, that's super pioneering. Can you tell us how that came about and share the story?
Yes. So we were a handful of Omani women who were in the audit field. So when I first joined, I think we were one of the first or second batches of auditors to go in as audit trainees. And the first batch, I believe, in KPMG, though they have differed with me. One of them has differed with me. So I do believe that we were the first official set of trainees, and we were the mixed group. So we had a few women, we had a few guys, and some of them were my classmates who completely shifted from auditing after that. I'm the only one, I think, who remained from my batch of myself and Aqil. He's the managing partner in KPMG now.
Okay. So everyone else spread their wings out into other areas.
Yes. And there's also one more who, his name is Ahmed Tufail. He remained in audit and compliance, in audit. But yeah, so we joined. They joined later on. I was there before them. And as an audit trainee, I'd fresh out of school just to prove a point.
I'm
And
beginning to get that sense about you.
because they told me that I could, when my father was introducing it to one of my distant cousins, and I said, why can't I do this? I was supposed to be off to Scotland to do teaching English as a foreign language before I damaged my wrist wanting to become a chef. So he said, because you're not good in mathematics. I said, but I can do this. And I decided to stay. We canceled my flight. We canceled my fees, and I stayed in Oman. And in 2000, so we were a really small group. And in 2020, in 99, 2000, 2001, officially on the website, IIA has it as 2003, but it was done before that. So the chief audit executive of Oman Air, he brought IIA to Oman. And it was under the Oman Air umbrella as an examination center to get qualified. And I believe I was recommended to him with she's retired now, with Aisha Al-Ma'wali, who was the head of CBO internal audit, which is the central bank of Oman.
Mm-hmm.
And we were the only two. And he said, I can't do this without having some women on this founding member committee. So we were invited.
I think
And
that's
that's how it started.
I think that's brilliant. And you're still a member today on the
Yes.
advisory committee.
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot of commitment. So, on behalf of your community of auditors around the world, thank you for your commitment to supporting everybody. I mean, that's brilliant. So, I think a lot of us don't know a lot about the Omani culture. And I'm wondering, what is life like there as a professional woman in the internal audit industry? We have, we know what life is like in North America and mostly in Europe and things, but can you help us a little bit? Paint us a vision of what it's like?
What it's like in Oman? I
Yeah.
love Oman. I'm
And as a
Omani.
professional woman too.
Yes. I'll tell you, Oman is very dynamic. And with the current transformative changes that His Majesty Sultan Haytham is taking on board and is implementing, with the vision of the late Sultan Qaboos, it's we are known as the Switzerland of the Middle East. We're very different from Dubai. We're very different from Qatar and Bahrain, and Saudi. We are more I think we're all culture based, but over here, we're a very close-knit community and very hospitable. Oman is known to be beauty within a dress. We don't have the high rises. We don't have that. We have modern. We are modern, but it's camouflaged with tradition and culture. And when His Majesty took over as Sultan, all girls were allowed to go to school, and it was mandatory for all of us to get an education, because he believed that just like a woman has to keep her house afloat and is the foundation of her house, that is how he believed women are for the country, because we provide the country with children, and that is the future. And if we don't give her a foundation of education and growth and development, then how is the future going to be? And with Sultan Haytham, recently, these laws were reinforced and changed and elevated, that it is mandatory by law to put your child in school. If the school believes that the parent is not interactive in the school and is showing signs that they're not present in the child's life, they can report it to the social services here. And there are so many detailed laws and regulations that have been put in for the child,
So it's equal opportunity.
for men and women. And I don't know if you know this, but Oman was the first country in the Middle East to have a female minister and a female ambassador.
So how do you think that has shaped you in your career?
That has shaped me. My parents are also a major factor. My parents have been privileged to being educated abroad and come back. That also affected the way I was brought up. I am not your typical. I'm just not. I never was.
I'm going to share a secret because with our audience, you called yourself a black sheep. When
I am a black sheep, but a colorful one, like you said.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because like you, I like to stretch things. I like to ask. I like to I question everything that needs to be done. And you have to show me how it's right. If it doesn't seem right, I'm not going to do it.
I think that's a good standard to hold. I would definitely say I'm a bit of a rule bender, at times a rule breaker. So it does make life interesting sometimes.
But on that note as well, women over here are very tasked. We look after our children. Like it is everywhere in the world. We look after the children. We look after the house. We look after the husband. We look after the family and the extended family. And we do all of that. And I've had two amazing role models, really, my mom and dad. So my mom was the first Omani English language teacher in an all-boys school in, I think, 1976, 77, something like that. And my dad has been working, he's a finance person. But what he does have passion about is helping people and helping communities, especially charities and children and people with special needs. He's been quite a force behind that over here. And my mother has always, my mom still communicates with her students, which is unbelievable.
All these years later.
And they call her Mama Habiba. That's
Nice.
mom or mother.
Very nice. Well, I think, our parents do have a huge influence on our lives, and the culture in which we live has a huge influence on our lives and our careers and, our personal growth as well.
Yes. And I do that. I agree with that. And there's another thing that I wanted to say that's I think women should understand. I come from I come with the background of two ex-husbands. Okay. So I have a son with my ex-husband. His name is Noah. And I remarried. And they told me I shouldn't, and they told me it's not going to be possible. And I told them it is possible. I sat down and I made sure that my divorce with Noel's father was not something that needed a dispute. And we remained friends till date. And my husband connected with him, they're friends, and they have a good relationship going. And we believe for the well-being of Noah that a healthy relationship between all three should happen. Otherwise, you will have troubled children in society.
I was in Noah's position, so I think it's very important that the relationships come first.
And I think
Yeah.
women in our part of the world should be more proactive into not thinking that this is the only thing that they can do or they can't do. There are so many ways around it if they look.
It's a big topic.
It is. Maybe for another day.
It's a big topic, Amal. Yeah. But it does underscore something for me, and it is something that comes through in this conversation that we're having is the importance of relationships through and through and through your whole life. So it's the relationships with your parents, your son's relationship with the parental figures in his life.
Yeah.
You've been a member of the IIA Oman for 32 years, plus or minus.
22 years for
22 years. 22 years for IIA Oman. But it just shows to me, highlights to me that relationships are important to you. And it highlights for me the community aspect of your life. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
How do you think relationships factor into your work as an auditor?
I think I have a different dynamic as an auditor. So when I walk into the office in the morning, we have a house rule. Before we leave the house, we're not allowed to leave without a smile. We're not allowed to get out of bed without a smile. So I walk in with a smile into the office. So I take that smile from the minute I wake up to Noah, to Amen, and then I take it all the way to work. And then I put my stuff down, I unpack. Sometimes I don't unpack immediately. And I'll walk in and I'll go and say good morning to everybody on the floor. And I smile. And there are days when I encounter people and colleagues who have had a bad day. I have encountered people who have been upset with me because of my audit report. And then I just say, you know what? Let's sit down and have a cup of coffee. And whenever you're okay, then I'll come back and we'll talk. But I just came to say good morning. So, and that kind of breaks everything with a smile. Even at the interview, when they interviewed me whenever they've interviewed me for jobs, I always say, they say, how do you deal with difficult auditees? And I'm like, I don't relate to them as auditees. I relate to them as colleagues with that fine line of segregation of duties and independence.
Yeah, and I think that's a great perspective to have, is that we're all human beings, right? So they may be auditees, audit clients, whatever we want to call them, but it doesn't mean we're against them or they're on the opposite side of the table necessarily. Like, there are different ways to approach those relationships where they're collaborative. I'm a big believer in collaboration. You may have a position, I have a position, but how do we take those two positions on a topic and come together to make more instead of making less?
Yes. So I do that. I break the ice. I try and break the ice. 95% of the time it works.
Mhm.
So as I was saying, I go into the interviews and they say, how do you deal with them? I said, first of all, they're colleagues. Yes, there is a independence there.
Mhm.
And I use a smile
Mhm.
and a friendly tone. And that's worked for me for 30 years or 32 years.
Well, that's brilliant. And I think, you know, when people understand that you are authentic and you want to listen and you want to know what it is that they have to say, that can change everything.
Yes. So I'm going to ask you, how do you deal with, how have you dealt with the same question you asked me?
Going back, well, for me it is all about building relationships, right? I build relationships with my audit clients. They're all over the world, and I need to get to know them before I can be successful, even understanding what it is that they actually need from me. So there's discussion, and there can be more than one discussion before I give them what I think is the solution that's gonna fit what it is that they need. But I think I recognized at 27 years old that relationships weren't my strength. I don't talk about this a lot, but I knew I had challenges, and I took a course back then called TDF, and it changed my life. I
And
was
what does
just talking.
TDF stand for?
I can't tell you.
Oh, okay.
It's a big secret, but
Oh, okay.
it's about perceptual patterns. That we all have 3 perceptual patterns, and we all have the 3 lenses, and one of those is our stronger lens, and one of those is our weaker lens, and the third one drops in the middle. So TDF, FTD, DFT, there's 6 perceptual patterns. And what I learned from taking this course when I was 27 years old is that I didn't have the strongest people skills. I tend to see the path and where to go. And when when you just then get on that path, there can be
Gray
some who I
areas.
left behind.
Ah.
You're putting me on the spot describing this on the podcast. So what and as I was developing as a trainer, coach, consultant for the internal audit community, these perceptual patterns kept coming up over and over, and I thought I need to be able to teach this. So I actually went back. Um, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years ago, and was trained to teach it. So now I
Wow.
actually teach this, and I teach it as conflict prevention. I had a client who came to me and said, "Can you help us with conflict management?" And I said, "How about we do conflict prevention first, right? So that we don't actually get to that stage where we have conflict that needs to be managed and de-escalated." And so that's what I do with this as a tool in my toolbox as a trainer for my audit clients. But it changed my entire life. So now when I teach this course, and it's basically I help them, I guide them through so they can determine their pattern. And so when we've talked about the the strong lens, and everyone has identified their strong lens, I ask them, "What do you think my strong lens is?" And 60% will tell me it's the people skills. And that for me means I've done a good job. I've done the homework. I listen. You know, I do all of those things that maybe in my youth I wasn't so good at, and I didn't know why, right? Didn't didn't understand that there was an issue. So this course changed my life, this workshop. Now I teach it to the internal audit community, and it just helps us see that we all perceive things in a different way. We all have a different lens, and we need multiple lenses. When I do my audit report writing teaching, I'm training them to see through my lens and I wanted to ask you about audit reports, but when I teach it, I talk about collaborative audit reviews, audit report reviews. And I have clients who say, yes, we do it. But literally just before Christmas, I had a conversation with a client who I have been teaching and working with for 3 years. And we come together every once in a while. We do a maintenance workshop to get people back up to speed, make sure everything is going as it should be. Quality is as high as it should be globally. And they said, yes, we do collaborative reviews. But when we get the report back, there aren't a lot of comments. And I went, okay, so time out. Yes, that is one way of doing a collaborative review. And I write about this on LinkedIn. But another way is to actually get everyone in a room virtually or in person and put the findings up on the screen. And if they've had the training with me, they all have a little bit of that Tracy lens, right? So that
I
when
like
they
the
when they
Tracy.
get together, they can be like, this, let me ask you about this. Let me ask you about that. Let me ask you about this. So because they have all the foundation, but not everybody remembers everything. Not everything is internalized by everyone, but together they have that lens, right? So it's all about working together and having the same goal and having everyone row the boat in the same direction on the team. So let me ask you about audit reporting. What are your thoughts on audit reporting currently? And then I have a follow-up question for you.
Okay, so I think that audit reporting needs to change drastically because times are changing. I mean, we are expected to be spokespeople for change. Organizations are changing. Technology is changing. Technology is changing every second as we speak. Something new is coming out. And
Okay.
I think we have changed. Well, in where I work in Vodafone, we have become completely paperless. And our reporting should become paperless and should become slim. It should have a low-fat aspect to it.
Lean.
It should have a lean aspect to it. Not that I'm very lean, but it should have a lean aspect to it. Because yes, we do all the work, and that doesn't need to. You don't need to put in every single piece of evidence in a report. It should be enough that I can give you the observation and a recommendation. And do I need to put down all the risks associated? Because everybody knows if this doesn't get fixed, then this is a risk involved. We know that.
Say I'm a fan of risk. I'm a fan of risk, especially in environments where audit clients tend to push back for whatever their motivation is. So I find risk is a tool for auditors to bring their audit clients with them and help them understand what they see, what auditors see as a risk. And then at least that creates the opportunity for discussion. I see risk as a valuable tool in that toolbox.
I'm not saying it's not a valuable tool,
Mhm.
but I have seen audit reports, and I have been part of teams that have written audit reports where
Mhm.
they'll put 5 or 6 or 7 risks
Mm.
when you can put it all in 2 lines.
I agree. I agree. I mean, I have my own specific way of teaching it and what language to use and those kinds of things. But I think listing 5 or 6 risks, especially when they might be so high level that it's hard to relate the observation to what those risks really mean. Like, how do you connect the dots? So I think having it be meaningful and resonate your risk statement be meaningful and resonate with your stakeholders. What matters for me.
And yeah, and I think that we have the observation, we have the risk, you have the recommendation, then you have the focal point and the timeline and the management response and the audit conclusion. Why can't we have the recommendation and audit conclusion combined in one? Because at the end of the day, we recommend something, but the management will counter it if they do. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't.
Right.
So our audit conclusion should just turn into maybe one box.
It would be interesting to see how it plays out and how it does resonate with your stakeholders and what it would look like, what the content would be exactly, and see what they say. Audit reports, no matter what teams do, they should do something. They should have a look at their audit reports and say, is this the way we want to go in the future? Is there something that we can change? Is there something we can update to make them leaner, as you say?
Okay, so and then there's this other thing that if it's not resolved within the management, you have to take it to the audit committee. Let's resolve it. I'm sure most audit committees and board members really don't have time.
No.
And they're
I'm
looking
sure
at,
they have other things they want to do.
they have other companies that they're looking at as well.
Yeah.
And when we meet at conferences,
Mhm.
so a lot of us have discussions and we have these little groups and everything. And somebody was asking about the reporting line and the new IIA standards where we're now not the third line of defense. Something like yes. They're restructuring. They've restructured it. And I said, this is a step forward for the IIA, that they're changing it all. And they're also with the vision that we should be assurance advisors and strategy advisors and all of that. And we have discussions and we say, do you really? Yeah, we're doing when you said risk, you like risk. I like risk as well. But you already have a risk register with each department.
Yeah.
So do I need to reinforce that when they have a copy of the ERM, when they have all their risks, when they have their plate of risks and that have been issued to them by the risk officer? So they know if this fails, then this is what's going to happen. Yes, I would understand if it's catastrophic and the company is going to shut down, then yes. But if you're going for minor observations, moderate observations, okay, maybe some major observations, not all, do we need to reinforce that? Because we're already discussing it at a meeting level, at a group level, together. And we go, what happens with us is that what I like to do is I go sit down with the department head, with the focal point and the other auditees and my other colleagues, and we sit down and we have a discussion. And we hash it out. Some of us, we get upset. Some of them agree. Some of them don't agree. And some of them take a stand and say, no, we will not. And this is not a current organization. This is a generic statement, because I've had this over the years. Over the last 3 decades, it's been very similar, but more tolerant now of audit than it was before. And why do we're already having a discussion. We're minuting it down in the meetings. The meetings are being documented, what we're talking about risk, we're talking about what could happen, the implications. When we come to the audit report, it's a summary of those discussions where they have given us evidence, or they later on provide evidence to justify their views, and we review it. So that's why I said, why do we have to put in? They have to be agile. You're taking the risk officer's documentation, You are doing a risk assessment as well, while in line with their document. And then you're putting it back inside when they've been doing it. That's why I said, why do we need to put in a few things that are already on the table in discussions?
Well, it sounds like you have robust discussions about risk
We
and
do.
and you're documenting those discussions. So arguably, why repeat it?
That is my justification for not putting it in the audit report, not because I don't like risk, but because it's already being done. In our main page, when we have, let's say, if we're auditing a finance department, for example, I have to make sure that the ERM is attached. The audit charter is attached. The audit committee charter is attached. So everybody who's involved in as a focal point and as a team understands where we are coming from. And then the first thing we ask them is to give us their risk register. And then they give us the risk register. So if they have all, and this is all documented, that we reviewed the risk register, we reviewed the ERM, they're in compliance with all of that, and then these are the audit findings. That is my only thing for it.
I mean, it sounds like quite a robust process and robust discussions. And really, you can the beauty of audit reporting is that you can report results in any way that fits your organization. As long as you report them, it doesn't even have to be in writing. So somehow we are, in some cases, trapped in this tradition of these weighty audit reports. And it really is, as you say, time for change.
We present our audit reports. We give the audit committee the reports. We give the CEO the report. We give the departments their reports. But when we present it, we have a pie chart. I mean, we give them all the details. They have, if they want to go back and look at it. But then we say, okay, we've done 11 audits. We've completed 8 so far. We have so many follow-ups. These are the follow-ups. And it's all in a pie chart available. You click on one pie chart, it'll give you all of the findings for that area, for that department.
Good. Well, listen, I wanted to come back to, if you don't mind, one of the things we had talked about earlier was that there was a conference. The IIA Oman held a conference for the first time in 6 years. I mean, that's a long gap. And from all accounts, it was very, very successful. So what do you think the greatest impact is of having a conference again after such a long period of time? And what does that do for engagement with the community?
So this summit touched many areas. And I think it was at the right time. I don't think we would have been able to have such a big impact had it been done earlier.
Well, congratulations on the success.
And it was absolutely beautiful. And we set a bar for every other conference that should come over, that should be taken in Oman, because now the bar has been set and it can't go lower than that.
That's fantastic. And I do find that conferences in your region of the world are very different from conferences that are here. And they conferences in different regions, they all have their own many positives. It's just each one is a great experience. And so I'm glad it was very successful. And I'm sure there will be many more to come to continue the efforts that are happening in your country.
Yes, where in my head I keep sending the committee members. I'm like, okay, now shall we plan the next one? Should we start planning the next one? And they're
All
like,
in good time, right?
recover.
All
We
in
need
good
to
time.
recover. I'm like, there's no time.
Yeah.
2025 is around the corner.
Well, listen, let me come to my last question for you because you've had such a rich life personally and professionally. And I'm wondering what legacy you hope to leave behind as an auditor, as a transformative leader for future generations of audit professionals and women in the field.
So I was thinking about that after we had spoken earlier, and I think that I hope that my legacy is one of empowerment and integrity, because that's what I stand for. And I want to be remembered for not just being an auditor, but someone who helped pave a path. I was fortunate to have an opportunity because of the late Sultan Qaboos, who opened that door for all of us, especially
Mhm.
women. And I think I keep telling everybody, I am now focused on giving back to the richness that I have received. You know,
I love that.
that is, and you know, we need to ensure that our future, because it's going to be different for our children. It's going to be very different. They will not be the young professionals that are working now, that are going to start work in another 10 years, the class of 2030, which is what my son calls himself, they're not going to have the luxuries that we have. Yes, they have the luxury of technology and all of that, but they will not be able to grasp how we did things. It's very disconnected now.
Certainly, things are going to change drastically in the future with artificial intelligence. It's going to change their whole working world, their whole career path, the career choices. I know some of us grew up without the internet. The next generation has only known the internet. And now it's artificial intelligence. So things are changing. But I very much appreciate what it is that you bring. And I appreciate you sharing your story with us here on the podcast and helping me in my mission to elevate women's voices in the internal audit profession. Thank you.
I wanted to say something. We've been talking about women, and I did a conference where I was talking about women in technology. And I turned around and I said, you know, but I'm a mother of a boy, of a little young man. I'm not a mother of a little girl. I have one child, and he's a boy. So I said, I support and I want to elevate all the women and give whatever I can to them, as well as the young men that are growing up in our society. And um, if I believe, I hope and I pray that I am able to give that to my son, to make him a good human being and a good husband and a good son and a good friend. You know, because my CEO asked him, and my CEO is a very nice man. So he asked him, so will you come and work for Vodafone when you're older? And he said, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to sell games for Vodafone. Whereas in the past, if somebody had come and asked me that question, I'd have said, yes, I'd love to work where my daddy works. But this new generation is not that like that. And I started studying again, and I'm planning to pursue my master's or my PhD after my CFE exam, only because my son turned around and said, Bill Gates didn't study, I don't need to study. I said, then make me your first million and then come and talk to me again. And we can discuss that.
It is interesting because I think it's about continuous learning. Maybe not how you achieve that learning or how you find that learning, but it's the continuous learning that makes us, I think, better contributors.
So maybe we should call it, I'd like to be a blueprint for the future success for the future that is coming up and that is currently there, of resilience and what was that? Find me a word, resilience and success.
Resilience, integrity, authenticity, those are the words that come to mind for you. And I hope being a black sheep is part of that blueprint because I love that. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast. We'd love for you to stay part of our growing community, so subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're enjoying our content on platforms like iTunes or Spotify, a quick 5-star rating from you would mean the world to us. It's a small action that supports our mission immensely. Don't forget to explore the show notes for various links and join our vibrant community on all our social media platforms. Your interaction and support play a crucial role in amplifying the voices of inspiring women in audit and spreading their inspiring stories even further. Thank you for being a part of our journey, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.